Live from downtown Las Vegas, you're tuned in to Guerilla Cross Radio.
Hey everybody, this is Alan Snell with LVSportsBiz.com, where business meets sports here in the exciting, dynamic Las Vegas market. And you are tuned to episode 2 of the LVSportsBiz.com 4 podcast series. On Friday, we inaugurated our podcast with Brian Killingsworth, Chief Marketing Officer for the Vegas Golden Knights. And today we have a very special guest who I think is at the crossroads of, I think, one of the most interesting and exciting sports business stories in Southern Nevada. I want to introduce founder, owner, Brett Lashbrook of the Las Vegas Lights FC. Brett, thanks for coming. It's great to see you.
Thanks. There's a lot of pressure being number 2, right? I don't want to be last, so I got to aim for to be number 1 now.
We're having our 4 podcasts this week to celebrate the 2nd anniversary of LVSportsBiz.com, which is a news site that covers this mashup of news between sports and business and politics, stadiums, arenas, fan issues. And I can't think of a better issue to cover for LVSportsBiz.com than the soccer stadium issue.
The soccer.
But before we dive into this, first of all, I want to congratulate Brett Lashbrook on your nuptials. You were recently married.
Yes, thank
which
you,
is
Alan. I appreciate it.
outstanding.
Yes.
So are you going to be able to handle the rigors of marriage and the Las Vegas Lights FC soccer team?
So far, so good, but time will tell. I'm a happier man today, so everything is good.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I also want to publicly thank you for buying my new book,
Yes, there we go.
Long Road Back to Las Vegas. Brett bought 4 copies for himself and his staff, so that was really kind. That was very kind. I really appreciated that.
Absolutely. Happy to help.
So we have 60 minutes to unpack what is, I think it's a kind of a semi-complicated stadium issue with a lot of moving parts in this market.
I don't know how complicated it is, but I'm sure it's big numbers, it's big impact, but I don't know if it's overly complicated.
Well, let's just backtrack 1 second.
Yeah.
You unveiled and launched the team last year in 2018.
Yes.
And
launched the team in summer of 2017 and announced that we were coming and played our first game in February of 18.
Right. And 2018 was the first season.
Yep.
And now you're in season 2.
Correct.
And we all know, and this is, I think our viewers need to understand, that you launched the team against the backdrop of a previous effort to get an MLS stadium built in 2015, even though you were not here on the scene.
Correct.
And you were not involved in that particular effort and initiative.
But supportive of it in the Finley family and
right.
And just
but you were not playing a central role like obviously you are now.
No, in no way, shape, or form, no.
So soccer is being played right now in downtown Cashman Field. The Las Vegas Lights control Cashman Field. It's controlled by the city of Las Vegas now.
Yep.
And you have a huge political ally in Mayor Carolyn Goodman. And just to give people a quick backdrop, last week the city council approved an initiative to give 180 days of exclusive negotiating time to a construction management firm, the Renaissance companies.
I would call them more than construction management. They're an investment.
Right, but they also have people need to understand that they're also partnered with another investor, the Baupost
Group. Yeah,
and that is controlled by a billionaire, Seth Klarman,
correct.
who would potentially buy the lights.
Correct.
One thing we need to kind of straighten out from the beginning, Brett, is that I want to make sure that there's some information that needs to be clarified.
Okay.
When I spoke with Floyd, I believe it was Floyd Kephart,
yeah,
who is the chairman and principal of the Renaissance companies.
Correct.
Floyd mentioned that his group, or at least Seth, or the Ballpost group, would be acquiring the lights. However, I think your statement last week seemed to indicate that the lights would be sold only if the MLS stadium deal goes through.
Correct.
So which one is correct? I mean, what if the MLS stadium?
Floyd. I'm sure. Let me just clarify, right? And if anything was lost in translation. Okay. So my family owns the lights 100%. We have agreed to sell the team 100%, contingent upon City Council finalizing a deal with Renaissance and Baupost.
So they do have to approve the public-private partnership.
Correct.
With Renaissance
100%. Yes.
We're going to get this.
That's an important part. I want to make sure that you and all the listeners understand that.
Okay, so if the deal does not
today, my family still owns the team 100%. We are in 1,000% support of the proposal on the table. It would be so much bigger than soccer, and I'm sure we'll get into the economic development and the overall plan. But we are 1,000% in support of it, and this would fully ensure and guarantee professional soccer in downtown for decades to come.
Okay, so my question is, if the public-private partnership does not go through, Clareman and the Ballpost Group are not buying the lights.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Floyd seemed to indicate that the lights were being sold no matter what.
I think where the confusion would be is that regardless of when they get the MLS team, that the sale of the lights from the Lashbrook family to Renaissance and Baupost would be upon the city giving them access to the land. Not upon MLS subsequently giving them access to a team.
Okay, so let's get into two issues.
I want to make sure you're clear on that. Does that make sense?
If there's a public-private partnership,
yes, it's specifically called a master development agreement.
Right,
and that's what the city council passed unanimously last week to negotiate exclusively with this group for up to 180 days. To then come back to City Council with a proposal for what would be called a master development agreement. If a master development agreement is passed by City Council, the lights would be sold from the Lashbrook family to Renaissance/Baupost. If, regardless, it's just hard stop on that. And then the city would require them to continue to go and get a Major League Soccer team.
Okay. To broaden this picture, hovering above this whole city situation is the long reach of Vegas Golden Knights owner Bill Foley.
Yes.
And for the record, the Golden Knights have released a statement last week saying that they are exploring the possibility of bringing MLS to this market.
Yes.
There's been talk of the new Raider Stadium but I don't think that the Foley look is contingent on the Raider Stadium. And that's something for him to discuss, I understand.
Correct. Yeah.
And we can talk about in general terms, because I think what's interesting and what's really germane, Brett, is that you actually worked for Major League Soccer at one time, and you worked in Orlando in a very semi-similar situation
a lot of similarities.
Of graduating a quote-unquote AAA United Soccer
USL
League
team into Major League Soccer.
Correct.
And oversaw that transition.
So there's a lot of stuff to put our arms around here for this conversation. Let's talk specifically about the Floyd Kephart plan, the Renaissance Company's plan, because this is interesting, and you see this in other projects around the country where a sports stadium, a sports arena, is part of a broader redevelopment plan.
Yep.
And I think this is what we're seeing here in downtown Las Vegas. And it does a couple things politically. it allows people who might not be sports or soccer fans in this case to possibly get on board with it if there's other goodies as part of the overall redevelopment package.
Yeah, I would say it's slightly different. Soccer is a small piece of a much, much larger proposal
It's
on
the
table.
sexier, high-profile piece.
Correct, but the reality is, and I've said this a couple times, I think the local media um, has focused almost on the wrong thing in the last week, and I fully understand it. I love it that they're focused on soccer, and I love any attention that soccer can get, and all these announcements and interest last week is a testament to the sport of soccer and the lights role in that. But the reality is, what the Renaissance Group is proposing uh, is so much bigger than just
Right,
soccer.
and I think my
is,
stories focus on the Renaissance Company's general
Yeah.
redevelopment plan, which is
Right.
looking at a mile-long corridor
60 plus acres, yes.
from Stewart Avenue, which I believe is on the south side of the 95 interchange there,
Yes,
crossing
correct.
Las Vegas
by the
Boulevard.
by the Zappos headquarters, all
Correct.
the way down Las Vegas Boulevard, down
Washington.
to Washington,
Right.
and give or take, you have to look at the map that the city's put out of where it is, but essentially down Las Vegas Boulevard and then the entire Cashman District site, and then there's some other property that's owned and controlled by the city. I'll call it adjacent to there.
Right. So when I spoke with Floyd Kephart
Yeah.
and also his general manager Candace
Candace, yep.
Rutter, they were in fact I published a story on some of the other land uses they were looking at.
Yeah.
These are obviously potential land uses.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of the 180 days.
Yeah.
To nail down what specific land uses would be
Yep.
part of the corridor. I thought a really interesting potential use was a concussion and head injury
Yeah,
center.
they got it. There's a lot of land there to be able to do some really interesting things, and I've been really, really impressed with them and some of the avenues, both that are public and not public, of ways to utilize that land in some really unique ways.
What were some of the things that caught your eye? What were some of the...
Well, I'll let them speak, right? I mean, I'm not a principal in that deal, right? Again, so I'll let them speak as to what some of those.
But personally, I mean, if you're, I mean,
Well,
you
for
know,
me, I wear my lights hat, and it's just amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. Here's an opportunity to take a United Soccer League team and to ensure its success for decades to come, to build a new stadium, have a clear path to advancing to Major League Soccer in the years to come. It is. I've used this analogy, and I'm not quite sure it's the best analogy, but I gave birth to a baby, and now less than 2 years later, it's growing up and it's going to Harvard. I know that's a silly analogy, but that's how I
it's
feel.
it's a little on the
Yeah, a little,
hyperbole side.
yeah. But I'm at least self-aware in that. I need to come up with a better analogy. But from a soccer point of view, with my lights hat on, this is great for soccer in Las Vegas. Then I take my lights hat off and I just put my Las Vegas resident hat on. Holy smokes, right? This is, I think Mayor Carolyn put it best when she said, not only have I been trying for decades, but Oscar for decades before me have been trying to get anyone to invest $1 in that district. $1, much less billions of dollars. And I think that starts to give the scope of what's happening here, right? And we can compare it to the last bid and the land at Symphony Park versus here. But
I think that's a
this
completely different animal.
Yeah, this isn't a massive redevelopment area that's been zoned that way for years. I love Cashman. I absolutely love it. But I don't think anyone would say it's been given a lot of TLC through the years. And the neighborhood and the adjacent properties. And to have someone want to come in and write that big a check to take it on all themselves to turn that neighborhood around, I think it's just an amazing, amazing thing as a taxpayer, as to what it's going to do with housing, what it's going to do with commercial real estate, what it's going to do with soccer, what it's going to do with live, work, and play, what it's going to do for the Neon Museum, what it's going to do for downtown Las Vegas. I think of all the success that Tony Hsieh's had in the downtown project, and just by sheer numbers, this is already out of the gate way bigger than that was, and I think we saw a lot of success.
Well,
from that.
this is a more ambitious, audacious project, no doubt about it.
A lot more capital, a lot more capital.
Right, but the problem is, though, Brett, at this point, we just don't know what the capital
Correct.
is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of details that are missing,
Yeah.
and I think the magic question that the public wants to know is what kind of public subsidy will be involved in this particular project. I was able to get Carolyn Goodman on the record saying that the private developer will have to quote unquote pay for the lion's share.
Yeah, I think it's a good way of saying it.
We just don't know whether that's 60%, 75%, 90%,
Yeah, so
and what kind of public ask is involved.
Yeah, so again, I'll leave that to the principals involved on that deal. I think Carolyn also said to you of clarifying any type of assistance that may be needed. Also, there's a lot of programs in place with the federal government in redevelopment areas, and so I just get sensitive as a finance major when people say what's the public, what's the private. I think you have to look at what's the general fund, what's not the general fund, and that there are lots of programs that the federal government has put in to incentivize investments in redevelopment zones, in redevelopment areas. Cashman sits in what's called an opportunity zone. Um, so it's a loaded question when you try to get a simplified answer on that. With that said,
Well,
again, not a principle in it. I think the mayor has been incredibly clear on what the expectation is, and I have no reason to believe that hasn't been heard loud and clear, and that all the parties are working in good faith to do something really, really massive. But as you can imagine, Alan, it's been less than a week now of finalizing it and trying to cross the T's and dot the I. So I'm right there with you of trying to get as much information as quick as possible, but this is also part of the process, right? For them to have gotten the E&A, called the Exclusive Negotiation Agreement, last Wednesday. Now for all the principals to sit down and see if they can't hash out a deal. I believe that they can. I believe it's going to be transformative for downtown. I think it's going to be amazing for soccer. And I can't believe someone wanting to put that much amount of private dollars into a neighborhood like Cashman, that a deal isn't there to be made. And I think you saw that in both Floyd's comments, and I think you saw that in the mayor's comments, and I think you saw that in initial comments made by the council. There is a deal to be made here. This is not intended, or I don't believe overly controversial. It's overly wow, but I don't think it's overly controversial.
Well, let's return down to the to what details we can talk about it later.
Yeah.
But I do want to tap into your background, your experience of working
Sure.
with Major League Soccer.
Yeah.
Because the fact is, the storyline now is downtown Las Vegas, Carolyn Goodman, the mayor, versus Raider Stadium and Bill Foley looking at MLS.
Yeah.
And that's out in Clark County.
Yeah.
Talk a little about Major League Soccer and the kind of attitude they traditionally have about having an MLS team in an NFL stadium.
So I'll start by saying the Golden Knights are a great organization, right? I don't want to be baited into saying anything at all that is bad about the Golden Knights, because what they have done is nothing short of amazing. I have said that to Kerry Buboltz on multiple occasions, and I mean it sincerely. Having started an expansion pro sports franchise the same year that he has, right? I mean, that's a tough task when you see all the success that they've had both on and off the ice. So I just want to make very, very clear that the Golden Knights are an incredibly professional, incredibly successful, incredibly well-run organization from Mr. Foley, Carey on down. As it relates to what MLS wants, I'll just say what my experience has been, or what they have previously said publicly, and it's not to, it's for them to determine how to take it. One, you need to show. I guess I'll back up a second. People always ask me about MLS expansion and the process, et cetera, et cetera. Having been the legal counsel and then special assistant to Commissioner Garber for many years, I would say that the whole process is made overly complex by your friends in the media. That it is really a rather simple process. Not to say it's not a long process, or a lot of I's and T's to cross and I's to dot, but it really comes down to three things. Does the market demonstrate that it can support professional soccer? Is there a suitable stadium plan? And is there a high net worth owner who can not only operate the team in MLS current day, but also has the capital to be able to continue to grow as MLS continues to grow? And by all accounts, MLS is continuing to grow in a lot of big ways. Again, it's not for me to say Raider Stadium versus downtown. I will just focus on our own bid, which is it immediately checks all three boxes. It checks them in a manner that leaves no doubt. It creates an enormous amount of economic development. It makes soccer the primary tenant, and MLS has learned through the years, when you're in the urban core near bars and restaurants, and soccer is just a 2-hour game, and you have a place to go before and after. It can create some really, really special moments, in a lot of cities as you look across the U.S. and Canada, the ones that are most successful. Does that mean other formulas can't be successful? No, I don't want to say that. I'll let,
Right,
I'll
but
let
I
them
think
them decide. But the proposal that the Renaissance Group is putting forth is second to none.
in general terms, though, the NFL team owner usually owns the Major League Soccer team, also using that football stadium, and we see that
Yeah,
obviously in Atlanta
yeah,
with Arthur Blank,
yeah.
and they actually did very well. Their team,
Yeah,
w-
averaging 55,000+ a game. I mean, they
and
are.
we saw that in the Sounders with Seattle,
Yeah,
and also
absolutely.
is it New England too? Um,
New England has shared ownership. Yeah, I would say that they would not be typically in the same conversation with Atlanta and Seattle as far as success.
so in
But
this
I
particular
think
case,
that also goes back to just stadium location of Foxborough, right?
okay,
Being in the urban core versus being, I'll call it,
but
further
if
out in the
but if we
suburbs.
want to use that as the template, if you will,
Yeah.
for an NFL stadium, in this case, Mark Davis or Bill Foley would have to have some kind of business relationship with Mark Davis and the Raiders to
Yeah, so
use
I
the
just want to
Raiders
be careful. I,
stadium.
I don't know any details of their plans or their details of their arrangement or their details of potential partnership. So I can only speak intelligently about ours. And I can just say, I said this the other day. I have probably sat through 100 meetings when I was at MLS of various owners and cities and stadium authorities that come to MLS and say they want a team. And 99 out of 100 of them, within 5 minutes, you don't have the money, you don't have the
They just
capital, you
they, they
don't have
just don't have the juice to do
they
it.
don't have the juice to do it. But let's finish the meeting and be nice. When I first met Floyd, I had a similar suspicion as I walked into the lunch, and I would say within 5 minutes, I quickly realized, oh, this is different. And over the course of those discussions of asking 101 questions, I realized, oh my gosh, this is transformative for downtown. This is so much bigger than the lights. It goes back to my previous comment. I love how much attention the lights are getting in
Is
this,
is that
but the
because of
reality is this is so much
is
bigger
that
than the
because
lights.
of the Bob Post Group and Klarman's involvement as an investor,
Their
providing
ability, their
providing the
ability to self-finance, their track record, their ability um, to be able to do this and do it fast, is almost second to none, and it's just incredibly,
Are you
incredibly
referring to Floyd
impressive.
Kephart or
His
or
partners at the
Klarman?
Baupost, yeah,
Okay, because of their financial leverage with.
yeah. I mean, it's all readily available as to their
Well, let me ask you this. I
yeah.
mean, what was your reaction when you found out that Bill Foley was interested in also an MLS team? What did you think of that?
I was surprised. I was surprised, and then I found myself by the end of the day just kind of smiling to myself of, and I've said this a couple times, so I don't know if you've heard this. I apologize. 2 years ago, and he's now become a friend, but Ron Kantowski, one of the top sports columnists at the Review Journal, wrote a column of, we don't need the lights. We don't need USL. This isn't going to work. What is this? Soccer, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, less than 2 years later, we have not only individuals at the highest level of elected officials that are trying to use soccer for larger and bigger projects, but we
Right.
also have some of the top sports people in the city now angling to invest and to control and to be part of it. And so if I take my lights hat off as a soccer fan in Las Vegas, wow, this is a pretty good testament to where soccer is in Las Vegas. When I put my lights hat on, I was surprised. I think everyone was
Well,
was,
when
was
did you find
surprised.
out? When did you learn?
Read the article that morning.
So you didn't hear it through like any back kind of through MLS or any MLS
No,
sources about?
no, nothing that was substantiated that would make me lead to believe that article was going to come out that day of the vote. But I think the mayor put it best, right? Competition is good. We stand by our proposal. I think Floyd said it well as well, right? Like, hey, the more the merrier. Let's go, right? This is going to be good for the city, and let's start the conversation.
Right. So I understand your advocacy position on behalf of soccer,
Yeah,
but um, another way of looking at it is that literally 2 years ago, before you came
yeah,
on the scene and made the big announcement at the Zappos Theater,
yeah,
or on their
yeah. Zappos Theater,
there was no professional soccer team,
right?
and now there's two. I guess you can call it legitimate bids, if you will, or initiatives looking
I would
at a
definitely say
Major
they're
League
both
Soccer.
legitimate. I would say legitimate
I'm just saying,
groups interested in Major League Soccer.
how did
Yes,
this market go from having no professional soccer teams at all in 2016, 2017? I mean, the team was, like you said,
yeah.
technically launched or approved in
Summer of 2017.
rights, but even before that, there was no professional soccer. Now
It,
we have two Major League Soccer initiatives on our
yeah,
hands in our market.
yeah. It's like we're a big league city, and we're just finally catching up, right? I mean, you can point to a couple different things. The first thing that I'd point to is I don't know why no one started the lights 20 years ago. It really is. As an entrepreneur, I've just chuckled to myself multiple times of why did no one do this
Well, talk
before
about
us?
how you even got involved yourself, because you did not move to Las Vegas to start
Correct.
the lights.
Yeah, no,
You were
that's
already here.
correct.
When
So,
did you get to Las Vegas?
would have been summer of 2015, and I
And that was
left.
more for personal
It was
purposes.
100%
Okay.
personal reason. So I was the chief operating officer for Orlando City, the USL team that went to MLS, and oversaw that transition. I'll call it from 3,000 fans a game to 20,000 season ticket holders, and building a brand new stadium down on Church Street next to the bars and restaurants in the NBA arena,
Because I think that
and the
Orlando
team
used the Citrus Bowl. Was it
until they built the new stadium
right?
next to a soccer specific stadium.
So and
And so
then
the team was sold to a group out of Brazil. I stayed on through the transition of starting MLS, and halfway through that first season, it was just time to move on. And at the same time, my mother, knock on wood, she's perfect today. She's been living out in Summerlin for the last 20 years. Was going through I'll call it some health issues.
mhm.
And I just, you have those moments where you think, What am I doing living in Florida? I'm a single man living in Florida. The team's been sold. I'm doing all this. I did what I promised I was going to do, and I came down there of taking it from USL to MLS and getting stadium funding and put a shovel in the ground and transitioning into MLS, and really just had a moment where I said it's time to move on, and just wanted to go help my mom. I know that sounds maybe a little cheesy, and I came out here thinking I'm going to take 6 months off,
But what's
and
interesting is, go,
6 months turned to 9 months, turned to 12 months, turned to 15 months, and somewhere along that time, I realized, hey, I'm 40 years old. What am I doing moving around? I like Las Vegas, and soon thereafter, it really dawned on me of, oh my gosh, Las Vegas is the second largest city in the world without a professional soccer team, only behind Detroit. And there was a stadium in downtown that was originally built for soccer that sat empty for 300 days a year, was about to sit empty 360 days a year. Um, I would say I had a high level of confidence that I knew how to do this and run a team and put it together and understand the best practices. And fortunately, my family had the capital to be able to do a project like this, which very, very fortunate to do. And so somewhere along late 2016 or 2017, I guess it was, started to put together the idea of bringing professional soccer to Las Vegas.
so really, right man, right town, right timing,
Yeah,
right capital,
yeah. It
and it all
really,
came
I'm very,
together.
very, very, very fortunate how it all came together.
So what clicked in your mind to say, I'm the guy to bring all these?
Well,
Because soccer, there was some presence of soccer in Las Vegas.
sure. It's a
UNL,
huge soccer
well,
community.
UNLV
Yeah,
had their
100%.
soccer presence. There was the occasional friendlies being played.
Yeah, no,
Some
this
national
this has
teams,
always been a soccer city. It just wasn't getting the respect, and it hadn't been
but but
coalesced.
why wasn't there?
I don't know,
Why
Alan.
didn't someone create a
I
professional
don't
soccer
know.
team?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I've asked myself that for many years
But
now.
what's your own just observation of why there wasn't a team?
I don't know.
There was just not a
I
Brett
honestly,
Lashbrook to step up and
I
make it
honestly
happen.
don't know. When you look at USLs in 37 markets across the U.S. and Canada,
Which are
it's
some of them
crazy
are
to
really.
me.
I mean, you got some. Let's face it. I mean, much
Smaller
small.
cities, yeah.
Yeah, it's much smaller markets.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know why anyone else did it, but then saw the opportunity. And even when I really recognized the opportunity, realized we could do it, I think I was still like, is someone else doing this? Like, am I, like, what's happening here? Like, did really no one else see this? I think we can do this. And that's when we,
Were you
decided to jump
concerned
all
that
in.
you were the only person who actually, or did you say, "Hey, I have the skill set to make this happen"?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you just stepped up and
absolutely
said,
the latter. Once we were in, and had full confidence that
so
we
you
knew
put
what we
your
were
soccer
doing.
Superman cape on and like, boom.
Give or take. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, something like that. But there was a very high level of confidence that we knew how to do this. There was a very high level of confidence that Las Vegas had all the attributes that you would need to be successful. Again, second largest city in the world without a pro soccer team. You had the demographics. You had a population of 2+ million that was growing. You had the youth soccer participation. But most importantly, Alan, and I've seen this in my previous jobs, the most difficult thing in launching a new soccer team is a stadium. It is hands down the most
you could,
difficult thing. And here we had a beautiful stadium in downtown Las Vegas that, again, was in a redevelopment area, sitting empty for 300 days a year. The baseball team was about to leave and put it empty 360 days a year. You had a mayor that loved sports and saw it as a driver for economic development. Again, as I say it all out loud right now, and I say it in hindsight, I don't know why no one else did it, but we saw immediately that this had the makings of something really, really special.
well, let's go back and look at some of those statements. Obviously, the growth of the Las Vegas sports industry has been predicated on the development of new facilities.
Yeah.
The Golden Knights are here because of T-Mobile Arena.
Yep.
The Raiders are here because of a pretty big public subsidy
Yep.
for a brand new stadium that opens in 2020. And let's face it, the sports hit of the summer so far, and I understand the lights are here as well,
Right.
but is the new baseball park.
Yeah.
The baseball park up in downtown Summerlin is really the star of the show of the sports summer so far of Las Vegas. They've the vast majority of their games are sold out.
Yep.
They're
Doing
leading
very, very well.
They're leading,
Which is a testament to the market, Alan.
right? But and I think your comment about facilities and stadiums driving the sports scene is accurate. However, the one thing which I do kind of disagree with is I wouldn't really call Cashman Field a beautiful stadium, because I think when you came here, you said several times that you wanted to convert Cashman into this Wrigley Field, Fenway Park kind of
So
atmosphere.
just to clarify, converting it from a baseball first to a soccer first facility, I find the charm, especially at the USL level, of Cashman as is. I'll call it. I think the term I've used with you many times is the Wrigley Field of soccer,
Right, but
or the
Floyd
Fenway
Kephart
Park of soccer.
claims that he began talking with you about the lights being sold in the stadium issue a year ago. That was like, you were only 3 months into your maiden season.
So having someone approach through the city and having real conversations are two different things. So I would say real conversations started recently, and I give them a lot of credit for going out and doing almost what I did when I started the team, right? I'm going on a very quiet, going through, right? They came out last week and said they've been working on this for 17 months, and geological studies and financing studies and et cetera, et cetera. So there is a don't twist the words of if the Lashbrook family continues to run and own the lights, there are absolutely modifications and upgrades that we can do to Cashman, but we would keep its charm, for lack of a better term, as, again, the Wrigley Field or Fenway Park. What Floyd has talked about is, hey, if we're going to redevelop all 60+ acres, that, yes, eventually they would tear down the existing buildings and they would build new because they're redeveloping 60+ acres.
Well, I think, the linchpin for obviously an MLS team is a new stadium in downtown.
Correct.
Under your plan, along with Floyd and the Renaissance companies.
Yes.
So, a new stadium would have to replace Cashman for MLS, obviously.
Correct. And that's exactly what Floyd has gone on the record as saying. And I think when you look at the renderings, there's no doubt about that.
So the previous soccer initiative was highly controversial
Yep.
because of the public money request.
Yeah,
in
and the
that
value of the land of where they were looking to build it in Symphony
right.
Park. Yeah.
In that particular situation, the public money that was going to be used for the public share
Yep.
or contribution to the stadium
Yep.
was going to be siphoned off from a park budget.
Yep.
It was money that was coming in from tourism dollars
Yep.
that goes into the city's park use. They
Yep.
were using it to rebuild parks, improve parks, pay for parks. If I recall, it was like $6 million a year,
Mm-hmm.
and they all they wanted was to use half of that.
Okay.
And that did not go over well.
Yep.
It was some people liked it,
Yep.
some people didn't.
Yep.
The point was that there was a division and it divided people in the community.
Yep.
In this particular case, do you envision, besides the economic development programs that we had referred to, or Carolyn Goodman had referred to, do you foresee any kind of just plain public contribution that's part of the overall package?
I like how you really phrase that question. Your long soliloquy. So what I've said to you, Alan, and I'll say again, I will allow the principals to discuss what the structure of that deal is. It's been 6 days or 5 days since that 180-day window started. The mayor has been very, very clear of, I'll call it, mistakes made at the previous MLS bid in Symphony Park. She's made it very clear, I'll use your words of quoting her, that the lion's share has to be done by the private sector. I think her additional comments at that same time of talking about these additional, I'll call it, federal programs to incentivize private investment into redevelopment areas that are available. I think you can connect those dots enough to know that this is not the previous bid. With that said, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to go into details that I'm not privy to, but the lights wouldn't throw our sport behind this if we didn't believe that both sides were on the absolute same page as to the type of structure that would be needed to get a deal like this done. Does that mean, as in any negotiation, it's still going to take 170 days to cross T's and dot I's and figure out exactly what that means and move a lot of pieces? Absolutely. But I don't think the mayor would have voted for this, and I don't think Floyd would have put them in front of the council if they didn't feel that they had a very clear understanding of what the city was looking for and what that they could provide, and that there isn't a real good match and a marriage that could potentially happen.
Well, I think the mayor.
Does that make sense, Alan? I want to make sure, because we've danced around this quite a bit, and I understand you have that one question you want to answer, and it's after 5 days we can't answer that yet, but there is something very, very, very important and heavy and with a lot of heft to this conversation, that both parties have a clear understanding of what the framework of a deal like that would look like.
I understand that you can't talk about the details because A, you might not know them. B, technically it's still confidential discussions between the Renaissance companies and the city.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, though, and I think you can address this, is that there is some level of public contribution. We don't know the form of it quite yet, but we can talk in general terms that the public will be providing something in some form to this project. Make a case for why the public should be on the hook at whatever level it is for this redevelopment project that includes the soccer stadium.
Sure. So 2 answers. Answer number 1, I just want to reiterate, I'm not a principal in this deal. I'm not at the table negotiating it.
Mm-hmm.
It would be not only wrong, but it would be misleading for me to tell you anything as to how that exactly is going to get structured. So I want to be very, very clear on that. I'm not putting on my Brett Lashbrook taxpayer hat. I love Las Vegas. I love downtown Las Vegas, and the Cashman District and that portion of Las Vegas Boulevard has been shunned, hasn't had any investment, hasn't had any love, has not had anything put into it to help it grow. And anyone, regardless if I'm involved or not, that wants to write billions of dollars of their own money in private capital to improve an area of town that by all accounts for 30 plus years has needed it, that is a positive thing. So it is to the council and our elected officials and them to figure out what that exact balance is. But when I look at 60 plus acres in the urban core of Las Vegas, and someone And I see the lack of housing that we have down here. I see the lack of jobs that we have down here. I see the lack of infrastructure that we have down here. I see the lack of culture that we have down here in the arts and just livability. I have no doubt that the Baupost and Renaissance group, their proposal to the city, and the city would require that all of those things are placed in there with clear denominations of making sure that we have housing downtown, making sure that we have commercial real estate, right? Making sure that we have retail, making sure that we have more culture and knowledge, making sure that we have an anchor tenant of a professional sports, making sure that we're connecting the Cashman district down Las Vegas Boulevard down to the Fremont district where they've done so great. And you've seen how Fremont Street Experience has continued to, I'll call it, grow east, and how that has helped with development in downtown and the ability to now shift and to go east and north. That is a great thing for our city. I'm saying this with my taxpayer hat on. I'm not saying it, I know everyone will think I'm biased. That is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing. This is not someone trying to come in and argue with city council on Symphony Park, right? A very high profile, um, a very expensive piece of land, right? This is the Cashman district that has literally, there was a tenant there last year that had been there for 30 years that was screaming at the top of its lungs that it had to get out, that this was unworkable. They didn't want to be there. They needed out. And now you have someone from a private point of view writing a 10-figure check, right, to invest into that. That is good for downtown. That is good. As Carolyn said, it would take decades. It would take decades of trying to do this parcel by parcel by parcel by parcel. And this development, as it's scoped out and as you see in the picture, et cetera, think what that's going to do to the tax base down here. Think what that's going to be able to do for infrastructure. Think what that's going to do for additional development. I look at other major markets when they've gone into these, and I want to be really careful how I say this, more rundown areas of the urban core, and you take a massive redevelopment to try and bring it back to life. You got to do it with a big chunk, right? You can't do this acre by acre by acre. It will take too long, and it will never pencil out for any type of investor. And for someone to come into our community and say, raise their hand and say, I want to invest billions of dollars into an area which, by the way, no one in this community has raised their hand to put $1 in for 30 years, I think that is to be commended. And I think Mayor Goodman, I don't want to speak for her, I think she recognized that immediately. I think the council recognized that immediately. And I think that's why you saw the unanimous vote last week. Everyone is excited. When I talk about what do I think is going to happen, you're right. I'm not a principal. I'm not at that negotiation table. But I have incredibly high level of confidence that everyone understands the type of framework of a deal that would have to get done, and it's in everyone's interest. It's in soccer's interest. It's in the real estate development interest. It's in elected officials' interest. It's in the neighborhood's interest to get this done, because for the last 30 years, not a single person, Alan, has raised their hand and said, I want to even do a fraction of this.
Well, I mean, I'm looking forward. I mean, let's see the details when the quote-unquote billions of dollars of proposals. I mean, we still haven't seen anything.
Understood. And so this is going to be a circular conversation until you see that. And I get it. Alan, I love you, but you're a dog with a bone, right? with this question. And again, I'll just keep going back to, I don't think the mayor, I don't think the council, I don't think Renaissance, I don't think Baupost, I don't think the lights would go down this if we didn't feel that everyone was on the same page of what a deal would look
There's
like.
some practical issues. I mean, this is like you said, it's a downtrodden homeless corridor. I mean, there's going to have to be some social programs, I would think, part of this whole package. I mean, it is, you work down there. I mean, it's a tough homeless corridor you're talking about.
I don't think anyone would disagree that this is an area in sore need of development.
But also some social programs for the people who are living on the streets too.
Yeah, as it
Some,
relates to housing, no one would be displaced. There's no one being displaced from their homes, but again, I'll let the principals talk about that. But there no doubt is this is a neighborhood in need, and I want to be very respectful and very careful how I say that. We love being down there, but you also recognize when investment is needed, because this can be so much more than what it is. This is, I said this the other day, the words downtown Vegas, whether you've ever been in downtown Vegas or not, no matter where you are in the world, when you say downtown Vegas, it elicits something. It elicits something great. It elicits, again, you could be in any part of the world, right? Anywhere of the 6 continents, right? Even Antarctica, and you hear downtown Vegas, you immediately think of it means something. And I think Mayor Goodman would say, we haven't fulfilled our full potential in downtown Las Vegas. And this is after decades and decades of trying and making great strides and making great improvements, but there's still a lot more to do. And when you see a private entity come in and talk about the type of money and investment and knock-on effect with, again, jobs and housing and taxes and culture and stadiums, it's really exciting. I know what your follow-up question is going to be, Alan. I know you like the back of my hand. I don't. I can't say today what that exact split is, but I can say you got to give them the next 174 days to figure that out, right?
So let's take a step back,
Yeah.
and you're friends with Major League Soccer.
Yes.
I mean, you're like you mentioned, you worked in directly with the commissioner. Like you said, you've seen all the cities and the
Right.
developers and the wackadoo plans come and go.
Yeah. And some really strong
And
plans,
some
right?
good
Yeah.
ones. Okay, we'll throw a few good ones in. Uh, but what is your feedback, or what are you getting from Major League Soccer in terms of how they're looking at downtown Vegas versus Bill Foley?
So I'll just speak in general terms. I think anyone who's followed MLS knows that the trend has been to go into the urban core. It doesn't mean there's not exceptions. It doesn't mean I'm here to say anything bad about quote unquote the other bid, which I don't have all the details on. Um, but I am incredibly confident that the lights have proven that Las Vegas is a market that can absolutely support professional soccer. I am incredibly confident that the investment behind this project is very deep and very, I'll call it more than capable of running an MLS team for decades to come. And the stadium plan of putting it in the urban core of downtown Vegas, again, downtown Vegas, in a massive real estate that would have live, work, and play. I am just incredibly confident that checks all the boxes of what
Okay,
MLS
well,
would be looking for.
let's talk about something which I know you'll be much more comfortable about talking about.
Oh, I'm
And that-
comfortable, Alan. Come on.
Well, even more comfortable is the Vegas Golden Knights and their current fan base, because obviously you made a statement that you felt this market could support a Major League Soccer team. I think a lot of people might want to question or debate
Sure.
you about that particular issue,
Sure.
but we do have some kind of baseline info to work on. I mean, you have received good grades in terms of in terms of drawing about 7,000 fans a
Yeah.
game. I think Saturday was a little on the lower side,
Yeah.
like more closer to 6,000. But here's my question, and that is, obviously, downtown Las Vegas, and the baseball team
Yep.
had an issue with their location.
Yep.
They went out to downtown Summerlin.
Yep.
They built a baseball park out there, and we saw last year that, in fact, I spoke with several folks with the team, and also just fans in general who thought, and I think we talked about this number. You can kind of fine tune the number, but I thought about, and other people felt as well, that about 70% of the fans were probably Latino Hispanic fans coming to the games.
Yep.
And if you build this soccer stadium, how can you be assured that the upper middle class folks living in the Summerlins and the Hendersons and the Centennial Hills would be willing to make the trip into downtown Las Vegas, when they're not really, let's face it, they're probably not coming right now for the Lights games?
So there's a lot to unpack there,
Uh-huh.
and it was borderline my hot button issue, Alan. But so let's tackle this a couple different ways. MLS, 10 of the last 14 expansion teams have come from our league, our division, and you have seen at a minimum you double the attendance, if not quadrupled or 5 or 6 times the attendance. So there is clear, I'll call it across the U.S. and Canada, of where you see a significant increase in attendance when you go from quote unquote USL to our second division to first division with MLS. So I'll check that box first. The second one, and I want to be careful because I don't want to turn this into anything or twist anyone's words, but I think that there is this connotation that is really unfair to North and East Vegas. I think that they are completely underrepresented. I think that they are very much uh, there is disposable income there. That these are the profile of fans where I think bringing high level professional soccer, I don't have any doubt about their ability to support it and their interest in supporting it.
Because
And
you're going from a place that right now is drawing 7,000 to a stadium that is looking to draw 25,000. You're talking about literally tripling the crowds in downtown.
Yeah, it doesn't scare me in the least, right? You see this in Orlando, you see this in Portland, you see this in Seattle, you saw this in Vancouver, you saw this time and time and time again. So this reminds me so much of having the same conversations in Orlando. The creating big crowds does not it literally that is the least of any concerns on trying to do a project like this. The American sports fan, all demographics, all backgrounds, all ethnicities have proven time and time again that when you bring the highest level of soccer, that they will support it. Soccer in 2019, we are so far past will it work, right? Which is why when I saw the article in the RJ 2 years ago about this isn't going to work, I laughed to myself and I said, we're absolutely going to get the last laugh on this. This will absolutely work. Um, I also think that there's something really to be said of being 20 minutes from anywhere in the valley. And downtown Summerlin is great, and the new Las Vegas ballpark is great, but it isn't convenient for everyone in the valley. And I think that has to be taken into consideration in this conversation. I think the most important thing is, and I go back to where I feel like the media has missed the larger part of this conversation. And I feel like, and I say this with love in my heart, Alan, I think you immediately fell right back into that trap and you missed the larger thing. A Major League Soccer stadium wouldn't be in the neighborhood as is today. It would have billions of dollars of investment in infrastructure and bars and restaurants and housing and parking and nightlife and everything else in and wrapping it like an envelope. That stadium, it would be so transformatively different than what it is today. So I think your question made it sound like, oh, MLS in Cashman as is versus MLS in a brand new stadium with billions of dollars of investment and infrastructure around it. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
No, I understand where you're coming from. So we have been chatting away for 50 minutes,
Uh-oh.
hashing
Time
away.
flies when you're having fun,
Yes,
Alan.
in fact, it looks like more like almost 55 minutes.
Uh-oh.
So we have 5 minutes to go. Let's talk about what's going on with the soccer team this year. Obviously a coach with a completely different approach to
Yeah.
things, and
God bless him. Viva Winalda.
and I want to let people know that in my book, I actually did highlight, which probably was your top. What did you say was your most top high-profile
Yeah, I think we
promotion?
got who's counting, but I think we had 56
Come on,
seconds
can we see? Can we see
56 seconds on SportsCenter. Scott Van Pelt talking about it. So
the
that's
the old helicopter
for a little old
cash drop?
soccer team. That was pretty good.
And I understand that's coming back for September. Is that coming back?
Yeah,
in
I think it's September 7th.
And I think you're doubling the cash.
Yeah, so last year it was a $5,000 cash drop. This year it's sponsored by Plaza Hotel and Casino. $5,000 cash and $5,000 in free play from the Plaza Hotel and Casino. So $10,000 in value flying from the skies that night. And everyone was so worried about it. Not everyone. There were some people that were worried about how you're going to do this. It ended up being a promotion where every single person in the stadium, every single person on the field, every single person watching it was just having a big smile. It was absolutely great. And to see people run around, and at the end of the day, they get $17, but to see how excited they were to run around and get 17 $1 bills, it was just, it was hilarious, and we'll absolutely do it, and we'll absolutely continue to grow it and make it better.
One of the other promotional sponsorship deals that got a lot of attention was the dispensary partnership with the
Paiute tribe, just down the street. So to me,
what kind of political fallout did you get? Because were there people who were bummed out that you had connections to dispensary?
So what I would say is the good people of Las Vegas and the good people of Clark County voted overwhelmingly to legalize recreational marijuana. I don't think anyone in Clark County is shocked when they see a billboard or they see a promotion for it in 2019. I think if we got any of the quote-unquote
Although I
shock
think
value,
you're the only sports team in the Las Vegas market to have a dispensary
yeah, I think
sponsorship.
that's because their leagues are so scared of it, and the ability of us to do it differently. I can't tell
What
you.
kind of
I can't
response did you
tell
get
you
from
that.
Major League Soccer when from USL when?
They certainly had questions about it, but again, the shock value, the quote unquote shock value, was all outside of the state of Nevada. Our fans were not shocked by it. And the other thing, and it's always important for me to say this, the vast majority of the products sold at NUWU are approved by the WADA, the World Anti-Doping Authority, right? And there are a lot of benefits for people of all ages, including athletes. And I actually am quite proud of how the lights have helped to destigmatize some of that conversation. And I think especially outside of Nevada, when people think of the dispensaries, et cetera, I used to say, they think of it as like a dirty street corner and guys with hoods on, and counting the cash. That's not what this is, right? Those of you who've been in a dispensary and have been in NUWU, which at the time was the world's largest. It's like an Apple store. It's completely professional. It's completely regulated. It's completely taxed. And I said this multiple times last year. We're really proud to be in Las Vegas. There is nothing about Las Vegas that we're ashamed of, right? We embrace Las Vegas and everything about downtown Las Vegas. We embrace it fully. And the Paiute tribe has invested millions of dollars. They're just down the street from us. And to have a partnership where we can work with our partners and our neighbors, there is zero hesitation or zero discomfort with it.
Well, talking about investments, let's go back to one of our earliest conversations. We actually met in Summerlin at the
Starbucks. I remember, yes,
right off Charleston. And if I recall, I think you had mentioned that you and your family. And you might want to clarify the number, but I think I had quoted you as saying that you and your family are investing $10 million in the launch and startup of the soccer team. Is that still accurate?
I mean, if I said it then, it certainly hasn't changed. We certainly haven't skimped on anything.
Okay.
Let's put it that way. But
I mean,
wouldn't feel comfortable going
in the
into
final
any
few
numbers.
minutes. What has that investment brought to you personally, in terms of from satisfaction to any kind of financial kind of implications?
It's huge from a personal point of view, right? I think anyone who has ever been an entrepreneur or has ever dreamed of being an entrepreneur, to be able to build something from a blank sheet of paper is just incredibly, incredibly rewarding. It is a lot of hard work. There are a lot of twists and turns and ups and downs, and it's not always as glamorous as it seems, but there is just an enormous, enormous amount of pride, regardless of what City Council ultimately does, of what we in this community and our fan base and our players and our team and our staff have built. That it's just been a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience.
And finally, as we wrap things up, I think again I want to re-clarify. You will be selling the team only if there is this agreement.
We have a signed sales agreement that is contingent upon the City of Las Vegas Council finalizing a master development agreement with the Renaissance Company,
which is in plain language a public-private partnership between the city and
Renaissance to develop the Cashman District site.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, there has to be a formal City Council approved agreement.
100% correct. Yes.
Okay.
And if the City Council and Renaissance weren't able to reach an agreement, we would continue to run the team, and we would continue to run what we believe is the absolute best USL team that there is, and we continue to build upon that. And we continue to build around the momentum of this being a soccer community. And even worst case, this is still pretty good.
Even without an agreement, you will stay on, and the lights will continue, and
100%.
Brett Lashbrook will be there.
100%. The Lashbrook family will continue to own it under that scenario. With that said, the Lashbrook family is 1,000,000% in support of what Mayor Goodman and the council is evaluating right now. We think, again, it's so much bigger than soccer. I understand the focus is on soccer. I trust me, I get it, and I love it that the focus is on soccer. This is so much bigger for the city of Las Vegas.
And our stories last week reported it as such.
Yeah.
It's a corridor-wide project. Well, listen, we're going to wind things up.
Excellent. Always a pleasure, Alan.
I think this was a very fast-moving hour.
Yes.
I mean,
I think we've set the bar pretty high for Dana White. I'm not going to make you ask you if I was your favorite interview so far, but if Dana's listening on his research, right?
I mean, I think, folks like you and everyone else in town really makes my job one of the most fascinating journalism jobs in the country, covering this collision course of business and politics and sports and fan issues and stadiums.
We appreciate all you do, Alan.
And I just want to, I guess, thank you for like giving me this issue to write for the next 6 months at least. I mean, I'm going to be busy.
You're
and
welcome.
And I appreciate the fact that you seem to, at least at some level, have a little sense of humor about my pest-like behavior around you.
Your words. I never use the word pest.
We're going to wrap things up. I want to thank our guest, Brett Lashbrook, founder and owner of the Las Vegas Lights FC soccer team, involved in a really interesting downtown Las Vegas project. And we're just completing the second podcast of a series of 4. Tune in tomorrow. Dana White from UFC will be here at 6 o'clock. And I'm sure we'll have a very fast-moving 60 minutes of chatter with Dana. And then on Thursday, also from UFC, Lawrence Epstein, the chief operating officer, who's overseeing a whole bunch of fascinating expansion plans with that MMA organization, will be here 2 o'clock on Thursday. I want to thank Quan, who's been doing a terrific job producing our podcast. And I'll see you tomorrow, 6 o'clock with Dana White.